Very warm welcome. You're tuned into Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Ferguson, BI. These are the top stories on the continent. The World Health Organization warns that a deadly Ebola outbreak in the DR Congo does have the potential to expand. This as the health agency scrambles to vaccinate thousands of people this month. Following 2 decades of deeply strained relations, France's Emmanuel Macron and Rwanda's Paul Kagame vow to resume cooperation. Also coming up in the programme, we speak to Jude Idada, a playwright and filmmaker whose play about Burkina Faso's late President Thomas Sankara is receiving critical acclaim. But first to our top story, the World Health Organization has warned that a deadly Ebola outbreak in the DR Congo has a clear potential to expand. Now, earlier this Wednesday, the UN agency issued a new toll saying there have been 58 cases of the outbreak since early April. Well, the WHO is meanwhile scrambling to vaccinate 10,000 people within a month. The agency is keen to show that it's learned lessons from Ebola's worst ever outbreak, which killed more than 11,000 people in West Africa from 2014 to 2016.
We're on the epidemiological knife edge of this response. The next few weeks will really tell if this outbreak is going to expand to urban areas or if we're going to be able to keep it under control. And you can see we're following 3 separate chains of transmission. One associated with a funeral that took place in a neighboring town of Bikoro. One associated with a visit to a healthcare facility more than 80 kilometers away in the small village of Iboko. And one where we're still gathering data on that's related to a church ceremony. So these are 3 separate chains of transmission we're following, and each one has the potential to expand if not controlled.
In other news, here in Paris this Wednesday, President Emmanuel Macron has vowed to resume cooperation with Rwanda. Now, Macron's comments came as he met with his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, in the French capital for talks. Relations between Rwanda and France have been deeply strained in recent years over Rwanda accusing the French of complicity in its 1994 genocide, France denying those allegations.
The last visit by the Rwandan president was in 2011. Paul Kagame then was welcomed by Nicolas Sarkozy, who a year earlier had recognized that France had made serious errors in 1994's genocide. Kagame accused France of training and arming the Hutu militias, who were the main force behind the slaughter, accusations France has always denied. Bilateral relations deteriorated in October 2016 when Kagame threatened to end diplomatic ties. He did so after France reopened its investigation into the 1994 assassination of Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana.
It is France that should be in the dock being tried. Not anybody in Rwanda and not Rwandans.
France, since that statement, has a new president. Paul Kagame has met Emmanuel Macron 3 times during international summits over the last year. Talks in Paris now centre on security questions in Africa, with Kagame the current president of the African Union.
There is more need to work together in a true partnership, as well as trying to encourage and empower the Africans.
We will not solve all the difficulties linked to the past with just one announcement or a few signals. I think that what we want to do is to resume our cooperation.
In a sign of easing of tensions, Macron is backing the Rwandan foreign minister as a candidate for Secretary General of the organization representing the French-speaking world, the OIF.
Now, the annual meetings of the African Development Bank are currently underway in Busan, South Korea. High on the agenda at the talks is how to accelerate African industrialization. Well, France 24's Georgia Calvin-Smith's been speaking to the Vice President of the African Development Bank.
How can the template used in Korea be applicable to dozens of very different nations with different economic profiles?
Yeah, it's a great question. Africa is 54 countries with different realities, strong potential in countries that have strong economic governance, discipline. That is a hallmark of Korean development. Clear plans, clear strategies, learning from doing, adapting as needed, but sticking to the plan and enforcing. So countries that have strong economic discipline, countries that have large economic domestic markets, or countries that have successfully integrated with neighboring countries. These are three factors that are going to accelerate the potential for industrialization. Lessons from Korea as well. So but the main lesson is really, if you want to industrialize your country, you need clear policies, you need to stick with it, you need to work with the private sector very closely, and you need a learning system where you learn from your mistakes, you see what's happening in the world, you adapt your policies. And Korea has done a remarkable job at it, and is still doing so today in the fourth industrial revolution. All the learnings from Africa as well. How do you use technology to create new opportunities, to disrupt all the businesses, to create new services?
Well, next, I'm joined in the studio by Jude Idada, a playwright and filmmaker whose play entitled Sankara is receiving critical acclaim, particularly in Nigeria at the moment. Now, the play explores the last 100 years of Burkina Faso's late President Thomas Sankara, a man widely considered to be Africa's answer to Che Guevara. His assassination in 1987 sent shockwaves across the African continent. Jude Idada, thanks very much for speaking to us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
A first question, when it comes to this play, what was it about Sankara and this revolutionary icon that prompted you to write the play?
First and foremost, it was epochal to show the Nigerian youth and the African youth that there was actually a leader that espoused all we have wanted, what we have asked for, that renaissance of African values, African vision and all of that. And it was sad that he was assassinated, but I thought that I had to bring it back to the consciousness of Africans, that yes, we had a leader that was like that. This was why he was killed. These were the lessons we should learn. And these are the steps we can take to keep that dream alive and bring the African renaissance. Why
particularly, Jude, the 100 hours, the last 100 hours of his life?
Yeah, because that's the intrigue that has always, bedeviled the commentary that concerns him, is that there was rife speculation that there was going to be an assassination, that the West, in collusion with local elements, were going to take him out. And everybody was always bedeviled by that concern, that why didn't he do anything? And I interrogated that thinking, and then I came to the conclusion that he did that, or he sat back and allowed himself be assassinated to be a martyr, because as a martyr, the Renaissance will live. In his word, as he always said, he said you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill his ideas. And I think Sankara, he achieved that to a great extent, and that's why we see 20-something years after he died, people thought he was forgotten, but then the youths of the people, the Burkinabes who saw him as a leader, the youths who did not even see him as a leader, they rose up and they removed Blaise Compaoré.
It's about reminding people who he was and actually the power that this particular icon had. Talk us through, because this play has been playing recently in Lagos. What kind of reaction did it garner there?
It was incredible. I was concerned, first and foremost, because what we see in the African art scene is a lot of comedy, a lot of laughter. And I was concerned that if I brought something that was serious and epochal, would the people accept it? And I was just amazed at the reception. People were enthused, they were inspired, they were motivated, they were empowered. They were like, wow, there was a leader like that. Yes, some of them had heard about Sankara, but they didn't know his story, they didn't know his vision, they didn't know the message. And then now everybody is saying in Nigeria that before we cast that vote, we ask those important questions. Are you Sankarian, or are you just, a lapdog coming to do the same thing all over again, as in impoverishment, corruption, and all of that kind of stuff? So yes, the reception was incredible, and I'm so happy that we had the courage to put it there, the vision to run that distance, and just that temerity of concern of the arts that brought us to.
If we think a little bit about the politics that Sankara stood for, certainly his foreign policy, it was about getting Africa out of debt, about anti-imperialism. Those are values that still exist today. Are they present enough on the African continent?
Well, sadly, they are not, because we see there's this dependence culturally, economically, politically. We always seek validation of the West, and that's what he was saying, that it should be Africa for Africa, it should be us for ourselves first. We should tap, harness our resources for the African Renaissance, as it were. We should do what is necessary for us to attain independence on all levels before we look to the West, so that the West treats us as an equal partner. But when we continue that relationship of dependence, asking for foreign aid and all of that stuff, we definitely wouldn't develop as we want to develop. So yes, we see some leaders now, Paul Kagame, and the issues they had with the United States as regards second-hand clothing. That was what Sankara would have done, saying that, look, I prefer the local textile industry to grow than to allow my people keep importing second-hand clothes, because second-hand clothes, once they came, they obviously affected the local industry. So yes, there was, will I say him, and then we'll say Nelson Mandela, and the things he did where he stood for people who've stood by South Africa during the fight for apartheid, even when the United States called them the enemy, like Cuba. And he said, look, I wouldn't forget the people who stood by me when it wasn't popular to be stood by. So yes, there are leaders there, here and there. We saw the great, it was viral on the internet where the president of Ghana spoke very courageously to the president of France about what it meant to be a new African in the new current dispensation. So yes, there are some leaders.
Well, I mean, Sankara has wrapped up in Lagos, so anyone who didn't get a chance to see it then, they'll have to wait until it's on again. Where can people see the play next?
Well, Sankara will be going to Kigali, to Rwanda in July to be shown there. And then we have it in Toronto, Canada. We're speaking to theatre producers in Ghana. It's also going to be there. And then it's going to go to Abuja in Nigeria. So those are the 4 cities for now that will have Sankara.
OK, Jude Idada, you're a playwright and a filmmaker. Thanks so much for your time on France 24.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, stay tuned. More international headlines coming up right here. You're watching France 24.
Sur France 24, la nuit, on est très fiers d'accompagner les Amériques dans leurs soirées, de voir l'Asie se réveiller, et on est là jusqu'à ce que Paris s'éveille.
France 24 es más que solo noticias. Es libertad, igualdad y actualidad. Nosotros damos un paso más allá, con información al momento para analizar, comprender, poner en perspectiva y debatir.
Sur France 24, l'Afrique c'est chic.
In Live from Paris, our correspondents around the world keep you up to date.
Vous êtes déjà plusieurs millions et de plus en plus nombreux à suivre France 24 sur les réseaux sociaux.
من الطبيعي أن يكون شعارها الحرية وخاصة حرية التعبير في بلد حرية التعبير.